Do you want to learn a striking technique for coloring stamped images? I've got one I want to show you. Hi, this is Sage Kimball and I'm the Mad Stamper with another technique video for card makers and paper crafters. I showed this card recently on my website and described how I colored the flowers with Whisper White craft ink from Stampin' Up! As I was finishing the post, I realized how much easier it would be to show you in a video than to write out the directions. So here we go. You're going to need an image that's embossed, like these flowers from the Indescribable Gift stamp set. You'll need something to use as a palette. I have this little tray with depressions, or you can just use a plastic lid of some kind. You'll need a piece of paper towel or a little napkin to wipe your blender pen with. You'll need a blender pen and some of these pointed Q-tips that you can find in the makeup department of some stores. Plus, you'll need some Stampin' Up! Whisper White craft ink. Or if you don't have the refill, you can use the ink pad. But I found that it worked much better using the refill. So it's up to you. Now, craft inks are what's called pigment inks, and this is thicker than our regular dye inks. It's also opaque, which means it's not transparent. So I've already stamped and embossed the image that I'm going to paint using Early Espresso embossing powder on crumb cake cardstock. Now, I've also done this one on Lost Lagoon just to show you that it works on other colors as well. The first time I did this, I just picked ink off of the ink pad with the tip of my blender pen and applied it to the image. But what I found is that it's so thick coming off of the pad that I didn't get good coverage and the brush strokes kind of showed. So I experimented, which, as you know, I love to do. That way I can tell you what I found works best. So here's what works best for me. I've got a couple of drops of Whisper White craft refill in this area. Then I took a dropper and put a drop of water in the space next to it. And I've got my blender pen. I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of that water and mix it in on the edge of my drop of craft ink. And I don't want to mix it in the whole thing because I want to play with the mixture as I go along to make sure that I get what I like. So I can use my scratch paper to see the consistency, and if it needs a little more water, I can add it, or if it needs a little more ink, I can mix that in to this area of the palette. Now I can start adding it to my image. And it's important to remember that the ink is going to dry much lighter than it is when you first apply it. So you want to get quite a bit of ink on there, unless you want it to be kind of transparent looking like this. This one I had put too much water in with the ink and it became more transparent like regular dye ink. So you'll just have to experiment with what is the right consistency of ink for you. Now, after I've worked on a small area of the flower, you notice that it's covered up a lot of the lines that give the flower such nice shape. That's when these pointed Q-tips come in handy, because I can go over the embossed lines, and the ink will come off because it doesn't stick to the embossing. And that's why it's important that you use an embossed image instead of using something like black StazOn, because you can't wipe the ink off the black StazOn lines. And I like to do a little bit at a time so that that ink doesn't dry all the way. It comes off easier that way. Because we're using regular cardstock here, you want to be careful that you don't get the consistency of the ink so diluted that you have to go over and over the image so many times that the cardstock will start to degrade. And I see that I picked up a little too much of the ink from this petal here. I'm going to go over it again just a little bit. So as with any new technique, you'll just need to practice and find out what works best for you. And you'll start to get a feel for what is so concentrated that it's hard to get it to cover an area, and what's so dilute that it's going to end up too light. And don't forget to stop frequently to remove the ink from the embossed lines, because once the ink dries, it's a little harder to uncover the embossing. I'm also going to color the leaves on this. I'm going to leave the stem the way it is. I kind of like that look. And now comes a different kind of challenge. First of all, I'm going to clean the blender pen in some water and then wipe it on a paper napkin here. And I'm always wiping with the side rather than on the point, just so I preserve that point. The next challenge is waiting for this to dry. You've put a lot of ink on that cardstock, and craft inks just have a long drying time. So you can use a heat tool to speed up the process if you want. But if you get impatient like I do, it's a good idea to set the piece aside and do something else, even after using the heat tool. I kept wanting to add it to the mats right away, and if I'd not walked away and gone with my urge to put the card together, I would have had white ink smudges all over the place. And then as it dries, the coloring will kind of even out. So you can still see differences in how much ink there is while it's wet, but as it dries, it looks more uniform. So I hope you've enjoyed learning a new technique for coloring stamped images and that you'll try it in your craft room. Be sure to like the video and leave a comment if you want to encourage me to make more. For more inspiration and instruction, be sure to visit me on my website at www.stampingmadly.com, the Stamping Madly Facebook page, and the Mad Stamper YouTube channel. Happy stamping!